Welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means, and the other one is just along for the ride. We are back into it. Noah, say what's up.
What up? What up?
How are we doing? It's been 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, back into the swing of the semester, and all throughout this week, I think it's mostly going to be Super Bowl talk, Super Bowl media. So we had to get our baseball fill in.
Does anybody even care about the Super Bowl this year?
No, not with the Chiefs and Eagles in it.
I am literally debating not watching it. Like, I don't think I care enough to spend my Sunday evening. That I still have responsibilities on Monday.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you're a Lions fan, so you can Eagles hate watch a little bit, and I'm certainly going to be Chiefs hate watching. So,
fuck the Chiefs. No, I'm on the record saying that. Like, I don't need another Chiefs Super Bowl. I don't need that. The dynasty. My son wants a Patrick Mahomes jersey, and me and my wife are like, "No, you're not getting one at all." There's 0% chance that happens.
Good.
No matter what.
I'm glad that we're on the same page.
Yeah, we are trying to raise him right, I guess, in that sense. There we go. That's a little bit better. So what's your prediction? Since we're not going to talk about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win by 6. That's what I think. What about you?
I want the Eagles. I want the Chiefs to lose, so I'm going to say Eagles 40, Chiefs 2. And
there we go.
Yeah, just a bloodbath. And Patrick Mahomes' legacy is officially over. And Andy Reid just leaves, and the Chiefs just blow up to smithereens, figuratively, of course.
Yes.
Going from there. So yeah. Banter Tuesday. Brian, thank you for hanging out with us. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you follow us on the YouTube. We are live definitely Tuesdays and Wednesdays right now. Wednesdays with the best of the West, and we are going to be adding our normal routine shows probably in 2 weeks when spring training gets going on. We have some fun little surprises happening behind the scenes to get excited about with our pod lineup. So it should be fun. And then Wild the Innocent dropping some knowledge on us. And I figured he was being funny, and I'm glad he followed up with what he did. Banthas are fictional creatures in Star Wars franchise. They are large quadrupedal mammals with long, thick fur. He thought I meant Bantas instead of Banter. Wild the Innocent. Thank you for hanging out with us once again. You've been kind of a frequent stay on these YouTube chats, so I appreciate you doing that with us every Tuesday. So let's get into it. I want to talk about your article that we put on Reddit, and they called you the Monfort's burner. How do you feel about
that? I thought it was funny because I mean, I took an optimistic approach at looking at this year's staff, and I guess if that gets me pinned as Monfort's burner, then so be it. But it's much more fun to look at the outlook of the season from that perspective than the one site that has us losing 106 games. What? That's crazy. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, the Picada thing. I definitely want to get into that. But to your point, I don't even know if like your article wasn't slanted either way. It was, is this the best rotation in recent memory? And depending on your memory, technically it is, because our rotation has been atrocious the last 2-3 years. Absolutely abysmal.
Think about the plug-in guys that we've had to go through. I mean, Jose Urena made a lot of starts for this team just a couple years ago. Chase Anderson,
Chris,
we have our own guys. We have our own guys now going, and that is just a refreshing feeling to be healthy again.
Right, and that's all it is. And it's clear that guy that made that comment wasn't listening, because there was a lot of solid comments in the Reddit. This is our random Blake Street Banter reads Reddit. Rockies Reddit for a little bit, but like there's some decent memories. Like, do you remember? You might be old enough. Where was it? There was actually good responses. My vote would go to 2017-18 with Young, Rookie, Marquez, Freeland, Gray, Chatwood, Cincy, Bettis, Anderson, and Hoffman in the rail. I mean, I think that's a solid rotation.
My vote would go there too. And look, that's all of a sudden that's 8 years ago. So
I know. Can you believe that?
Oh, no, like I don't want to believe it.
These grizzled vets, right? Like 3 of those are still on this team, right? Marquez, Freeland, and Cincy. And they are.
And those are the only 3 Rockies from the 2018 NLDS roster to still be with the club. That's wild. I found that out while writing the article. That was sad because Chuck just I guess he's still with the club, but in a He's not a player anymore.
Right. Yeah, this is where 12-year-old you is just kind of excited all around, right?
This guy, get him out of here.
Thank you, Christian from DNVR Rockies, hanging out with us in the YouTube chat. The young jokes. Granted, he said on his pod that he wasn't going to make fun of you as much because you finally hit the 21 mark. So
Yeah.
I think, Sias, take a step back, dog. Take a step back. All right.
Yeah. Take that.
But yeah, so thank you. If you did read that article, go check it out. The rotation is something to be somewhat optimistic about, especially with a healthy 5. And then you have the 3-headed monsters coming up. Then you have Tanner and Bradley hanging out in the wings, ready to go if we need it. Christian in the chat again. I'll believe it when we get a beer together. I think that's going to happen in about 3 or 4 months. So we just got to get through this semester, dog.
Yeah, up on the rooftop. That's the goal.
That'd be beautiful. A little, there we go. A little joint pod hanging out on the rooftops up there. But yeah, like infield hits to say, healthy arms returning, maybe some hope Feltner gets some run support, right? Like you can look at the win-loss record that Feltner had, but like the outlying metrics of Feltner in 2024 gives everybody reason to be excited about in 2025.
Yeah, and I think he continued to get better as the year went along, and he's still the youngest guy in the, I guess you could call him a veteran at this point because he's been there for a while, but he is the youngest guy in the starting rotation. And, Bud Black loves him. He just wants him to pitch and not worry so much about nibbling on the corners. And I think we might get an uber aggressive version of Feltner in 2025.
I hope so. Give me all the Felt nastiness. Like, get him out of his own head. Like there's the reports that he just kind of gets his own way sometimes, and it kind of felt like he was allowing that stuff to kind of go away at the end of last year and just go out and ball. And he kind of has that demeanor about him right now.
Yeah, and we have to remember, I mean, the dude got struck with a line drive in the head. Like that is a mental hurdle to overcome, and so maybe finally he's put that behind him. I mean, just returning to the mound can be really nerve-wracking after something like that. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully nobody ever has to imagine that either. But yeah, crazy stuff for Ryan Feltner. So go check that article on BlakeStreetBanter.com. Go ahead and leave. Go ahead and share it with your friends. Your mama. Again, we're your mama's favorite podcast. She just doesn't know it yet. And also just like a call to action, we are no longer going live on the X on the Twitter. We are sticking to YouTube. We are on Twitch a little bit. Nobody even knows what a Twitch is. And we release on our podcast platform. So listen on Apple and Spotify. So make sure you're subscribed to all of us. Make sure you're leaving us a ranking, a review, any of that kind of stuff like this person did. Babo 2, thank you on the Apple Pod review, left late last year. Elite Baseball Podcast, 5 stars. The show is not just for Rockies fans. They have many different segments for around the league, and the player interviews are fascinating. Go ahead and just leave one of those for us so we can tell your mama that you left a review and you were kind. But yeah, huge shout out to that guy, for the person leaving that review. And like, we had Chase Dollander on last week. We had Austin Eminer, who has a fantastic story, fantastic dude. He doesn't know this yet. And I don't know if he's ready for this, but he's my new Dugan Darnell. So I need you all to be ready for this. I am huge on Austin Eminer just as a person and then the player behind it. So we got a lot of good stuff happening. A lot of fun stuff.
That's high praise comparing him to your boy Dugan Darnell.
I know. I'm excited. Dude, Dugan's got the workouts going on in Instagram story. He was at the facility today or yesterday on his IG. Baseball is here. Like I'm literally smelling it right now. I'm so stoked.
It is so soon. It's honestly, I don't know how we got here so fast.
I know it felt like it was so long ago, and yet here we are having some fun, getting ready to talk about spring training. Segue master. Give me some props.
Smooth,
I did well there. I did well there. Yeah. But spring training invites, like we said, the spring training catchers report in 9 days. I think the 13th, the first game's on the 21st. And so we have some non-roster invites ready to go. I'm going to read them real fast, not to waste all of our time, but we're going to pick like one or two. Let's pick one pitching and one player. That position player that will make an impact and who has the best chance of making the breaking camp with the big league squad. So here are the invitees. Infielders: Julio Carreras, Keston Herrera, Kyle Karros, Nick Martini, and Ryan Ritter. Outfield is Cole Carrick, Benny Montgomery, Sterling Thompson, and then the utility player from Milwaukee, Owen Miller. And then you got the catchers who are always there: Betancourt, Fulford, Nola, and Roniker Palma. Huge fan of Roniker Palma as well. Right-handed pitchers, we got Zach Agnos, Diego Castillo, Chase Dollander, Tommy Doyle, Gabriel Hughes, Jake Woodford. And then left-handed pitcher, Jack O'Laughlin, Carson Palmquist, Sean Sullivan, and Jeffrey Yon. I'll let you go first. Who's the position player you think breaks camps? And before that, if you are listening, go ahead and put it on the YouTube chat. Or if you are listening on the podcast, leave us a review with your choice. Go.
Yeah, so I think picking a position player that I'm most excited about or could have an impact is a little bit easier than picking one of the pitchers. I mean, my goodness, how do you not get overexcited with all those options? Looking at the position players, I mean, one of the ones that's notable is Austin Nola. He's new in the Rockies system this year, and he's had a past in the big leagues. And so I know that right now, Jacob Stallings has that veteran catching presence bolted down after signing back with the Rockies. But it'll be interesting to see the kind of spring that Nola is able to put together. I also think the same kind of goes for Keston Hiura, another veteran signing that the Rockies added this offseason. I would expect them to have to perform to get close to the making the roster. But I guess they're kind of boring picks because they're veterans and they've been there before. But I'm going to go with one of those two. And I'll lean, if you want one, then I'll go with Nola.
Picking two outside cats coming in hot, ready to go. I am curious how the catching thing works out, right? Like, we all love our Drew Romo. We all know Stallings is there. We all know Hunter Goodman's kind of peeking around the corner, like, hey guys, I'm still here type thing. But like, what if Drew Romo's not ready for whatever reason? Like, there's a reason he wasn't playing as much at the end of last year. So you got Austin Nola to kind of fill that gap until Drew Romo is ready after he has spent some extra time in Albuquerque, right? Like, they're kind of hedging their bets with that. So I think you might be onto something, Austin Nola, there, just because our beloved just might not be ready yet, which I think is fair after how it ended.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that. I don't know. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of position players that I see making noise that are non-roster invites. You have the 40 man that we could talk in depth about. Like, there is somebody that's going to break camp with them, but I think none of them break camp. I will say that. I'm going to go who gets the most eyeballs, who's been getting a lot of eyeballs, who's getting a lot of love right now across the prospect world, is Cole Carrick. If you've listened to us at all last year, we believed him and Kyle Carroll should not have been spending all year in Spokane. I think there was some maturity levels for both of them that they had to kind of work through and get ready to. But there is some freak athlete that's like Brenton Doyle. Sure, whatever. I raise you a Cole Carrick. You ready? Here you go. And he's going to get a lot of people excited about the future of this team because he's going to be in purple in spring training. And so a lot of people are going to go, ooh, I have a new favorite outfield prospect, and it's going to be Double C up there.
He's a freak. I think I'm with you. I think if there's a lot of people at spring training, you know, they might be vacationing to Arizona and just taking in a ball game. They might not know who's out there, but they're all going to be like, whoa, who's that guy that just made that play or even attempted to make that play? He has all the athleticism in the world, as you outlined. And there's a chance that, he makes one or two plays that ends up on Talking Baseball or the MLB highlights.
Yes, I guarantee it. And there's a little bit of a swag, a little Jordan Beck adjacent swag that comes with Cole Carrick as well. That, again, we've talked about plenty of times that this Rockies team needs. So keep an eye on Cole Carrick. Let's go to the comments section real quick. Yeah, Wild Innocent reminding us that the Cubs are reporting to Japan soon with the Dodgers. We can skip the Dodgers. I don't know if we should. I don't think we're allowed to say the Dodgers on this pod. That team in LA. They're reporting to Japan next week. Sean, some praise here. Finally was able to read Noah's pitching article. Made me think about getting young guys in the rotation. What is more likely, Senza moving to the barn or trading Freeland at the deadline? That is a fantastic question.
Yeah.
That is great. I love that. Thank you, Sean.
I'll take a stab at it. I think, I hadn't thought about either of these possibilities, but I think it's more likely that Senza gets moved to the barn than it is for Freeland to get traded. I think with Chuck gone, Freeland, really has an elevated role with his leadership, and he's
Yep.
just a Colorado kid. And who knows what the value would be like for a lefty starter that's on the wrong side of 30 now, I believe. But gosh, that is an interesting question, and I can see a world where Senza goes to the pen, working back from injury, and the Rockies want to keep him active with the club.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think Senza's more likely to move to the barn than Freeland at the deadline. But I don't think Senzi's the first option to go to the barn either. I think you're moving at Austin Gomber first. Saez, do you guys think they will hold off on Dollander to preserve rookie eligibility? Something we've talked a little bit about in behind the scenes in the Slack in the group chat. I personally do. Dollander, he mentioned last week, was like, I could go zero ERA, just lights out, and I still might not make the big league camp. I am okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. I could also just go kind of poop the bed and not be able to. I had to work my way back. Like he kind of understands that, but I don't see a world where the Rockies are pushing Dollander up with opening day to be part of this rotation, because we, like you said in your article, I think we're just 5 deep already.
Yep. I'm with you. And to be honest, the whole contract manipulation, I struggle to understand. So I oftentimes listen to the professionals talk about it. And so I'm just going to side with you on this one. But I think it makes sense for the Rockies too. I mean, why not get an extra year when realistically 2025 contending for October won't happen? But you never know.
And could you imagine how upset the fan base is when the next number 1 prospect is up in the big league squad and he's coming out of the arm barn? Fans would riot. There'd be beers coming from the rooftop. Like, I don't even want to imagine that. Like, there's 0% chance the Rockies call him up to be an arm barn piece. There's just 0% chance. Carson Palmquist, yes. Sean Sullivan, probably. But Dolly, no. There's no way. There's no way. Cole Carrick, Dollander, and Palmquist are the most exciting, but don't see them breaking camp. We'll get to the arms in a little bit, but Taylor, thank you for hanging out. I know you're following us on Twitter. Thank you for following us so long in there. This might be your first YouTube that I remember, so thank you for that. K-Dub in the hizzy. Owen Miller has a perfect Rockies bench guy vibe. Make sure you check out K-Dub tomorrow with Skylar on the Best of the West show on the BSB network. He does, though. Owen Miller has big bench guy vibes.
Hey, he's got big shoes to fill with Jake Cave leaving. Let's just say that.
Dude, I can't wait for that team in LA to come back and we get an Owen Miller coming from the bench. Like, what are we doing here? It's going to be something minuscule about something. I don't know. Like, maybe Freddie Freeman's going to look at him goofy.
Maybe take out the part where we give up 7 in the 9th, though. And then.
I don't know how we have forgotten what a game that was. Like, we only had that moment because of, but we're glad we had it. Yeah. Does Goodman, wildly innocent, does Goodman get a break for time served? I think I need you to expand on that. I don't know what he means by that. Do you?
I don't think so. Maybe it's something to do either contract manipulation, which I don't see happening, or just rest time. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Come back to us, Wild. Infield hits, really curious how Rockies manager handles Romo if he has a tough spring. I think Nolan would get a good nod opening day if Romo starts cold. It's kind of, I kind of agree to that. The biggest buzz around media, Rockies Fest from Christian here, was Cole Carrick. He was mentioned a lot. And you see it in the prospect circles. Cole Carrick is going to be on everybody's screen, but Granny's not listening to them. Granny wasn't at the Rockies Fest, but Granny might be listening to KOA and hearing Cole Carrick on the spring training there. So I think the buzz is legit. I'm not saying don't listen to the buzz. It's there. We'll come back to you, Taylor, in a little bit. So which is the arm that you think might break camp?
Gosh, I mean, looking at the list, a lot of the guys we kind of already talked about, a little bit too young. You want to be able to maintain them in future seasons. So I'm going to go with a familiar face, Tommy Doyle. Welcome back. I was excited when we saw that the Rockies re-signed him from Atlanta. I've always liked his stuff. I think he has a real chance to succeed in Colorado. I felt that even before he left. And I'm glad that he's back because there is an opening in the bullpen. Everyone's young there. And, as we found out last year, we needed a hot hand to give the ball to. So you never know. There's always a space down there.
Yeah, and Tommy Doyle has some experience up there and has shown flashes of being capable. So I think I like that pick. I'm going to agree with you, but for podcast sake, I'm going to push Carson Palmquist. He had his taste in Albuquerque. I think the Rockies are ready for him to push to that next level. They pushed him up pretty quickly through the system. So I think he's there knocking ready to go. If if everything goes okay, I still think he might be that long relief arm coming out of the barn because they don't want to do that with Anthony Molina again. I don't know who else because Ty Block's not really here. Like beyond Tommy Doyle, you don't think you really have that long reliever. Maybe a Blaylock or Gordon, but they're more starters. I don't know if you really want to mess with that. So I'm going to lean Carson Palmquist just because he is that kind of next step prospect. The kids are supposed to play this year. So let's run them all out in whatever way we can. So
That'd
give
be
me
awesome.
Carson Palmquist.
I mean, he finished last year in AAA, so hypothetically, he's right there.
Yep. Hopefully
as a
working
likely
on
candidate.
something. Yep. Taylor in the chat. Prospects were asked what the craziest thing they've seen since becoming professionals. Most guys said streakers or something silly like that. Carol said basically everything Cole Carrick does daily. That tracks.
Heck yeah.
that seems about Kyle Carroll's out of his page book. Goodman. Will he? So thank you, Wild Innocent, for clarifying. Will he get to be up and back up Stallings over Romo because he finished the year somewhat stronger? I think kind of like the Drew Romo conversation, he was sent down at the end of the year. So like what, and he didn't catch when he was sent down to AAA. I think some people think, oh, he went down to work on things. No, he didn't catch. I think he got like 3 games. So he wasn't going down there to work on his backstop skills. I don't know if the Rockies trust him as a catcher, even though he plays better when he is a catcher. I don't know. So I don't think Goodman gets that nod. I still think he is a third catcher / second or third first baseman / fourth or fifth outfielder, kind of weird, unique, super utility role type play.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And I mean, as much as it stinks, because that's our guy, I just think the Rockies have to find out if Drew Romo can give them a starting caliber performance at the big league level. And rather than do the whole thing where we kind of play him for several years and then never really know, I say we just rip the Band-Aid off and find out in 2025. After, it was a rough 2024, but that's all right.
Yep. They need to do that with everybody. This needs to be the year of the Band-Aid. Maybe that's a phrase that we start making happen. Just rip the Band-Aid off, see what we have with everybody, not
Make
just
the stickers. Start making the stickers.
Rip the Band-Aid. Oh, put that in there. Love that. If you're listening, I'm sure Isaac's somewhere around. Isaac, put that in the group chat. Stickers, Band-Aid, rip it off 2025, something like that. Christian from DNVR Pod. Do we get to see my boy Blaylock starting games this year? Yes, absolutely. He will make us a few spot starts. I think he is. If I were to put Blaylock on the 1 through 10 starting pitching list, I'm putting Blaylock at a 7. And I think I have Dollander at 6. I think Blaylock's right there.
I was going to go with 6. I think if starting 5, they stay healthy, then you can roll with them. I think if anyone gets hurt, it's going to be Blaylock. And then once we pass the point where Dollander is unrestricted in terms of contract and all that, like rookie team control, then he might jump him and leapfrog. So kind of the same way you're thinking. Tanner Gordon made starts last year too, so don't forget his name. But him and Blaylock are definitely first in line.
Agreed. Before we get to our last topic, JD Games, thank you for hanging out on the YouTube. Again, if you're listening on the pod, come hang out on the YouTube every once in a while. Do you think Charlie Condon starts the season back in high A? Yes. No.
I forget. That was answered at media during Rockies Fest. I'm pretty sure it was like heavy hints being dropped.
Okay. Oh yeah, I did see something about that. Maybe Sayers is still listening and was able to drop that in there. I think he will start at high A just to get his confidence back up, because like how he ended last year with the thumb injury. Yeah, that's what it was. Maybe yeah. So yeah. Way to go. I just think the way last year ended in Spokane, I don't think you throw him into the fire. That's the Eastern League right away. Granted, the Northwest League in April is terrible for hitters as well. I think he starts at high A because he's not going to be there long, as Christian says, but said he hopes where he starts isn't where he ends.
What a quote.
Yeah. Just big confidence in our number 2 guy there.
What?
Jesus. I don't know if that's the quote we want to talk about.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think if he does start at high A, I mean, elevate him to double A by mid-May. I mean, certainly by June.
Yeah.
It's got to be quick.
It has to be real quick. And the Rockies fans are going to be watching very closely with a guy like Charlie Gundon. Best hitter in college baseball for a whole year. We got him. Yes, great. What are we doing with him? He's in high A? What? Yeah.
Yeah. And we've already been waiting for Dollander. So,
right. I don't know.
Something's got to give.
Something has to give. Yeah. Charlie's not even on the spring training invite list. So keep that in mind with where he might start the season. That's where I think it's going to be high A. We got Riley Pint and card conversation in the YouTube chat. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Our final topic is something we talked about in the Slack chat. I think I am differing of opinion with most people in our chat. But do the Rockies optics, is it good or bad? Terrible grammar on the YouTube banner there. And I think there's a James showed up finally.
Look who it is.
Look who it is. Yay. Everybody clap for James.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. I appreciate
nice
that.
flag, Noah, says James, the BSB. Hopefully we get to see his face soon. Do the Rockies have an optics problem is what I should have typed in the banner. And I think I'm arguing no. Where I think there's yes, and this might be where BSB gets the Dick Monfort's burner account vibe, where it's whatever. And I just want to put it out there. I don't think that any team that makes any trade, you have to trade somebody because there's value. I don't think that's true because I'm going to go down my list of trades here in a little bit and point to reasons why I think my point's right. I think there's more value sometimes when holding on players. We can go, let's just start with Elias Diaz. We didn't move him at the All-Star game 2023. Wasn't any value with the catching. I talked about that on a few pods in the past. Like there wasn't a catcher's market. Not a lot of teams need a backup catcher like Elias Diaz. And it took 2 weeks for him to get signed by a team when we DFA'd him last year. It took him entire offseason until a week ago to get re-signed by the team that picked him up in the San Diego Padres. So is there value in that? Yeah, but trade him for whatever you can. I know Christian said that on the DNVR Rockies pod, and I don't think that's good. I don't think just because you bring in a warm body into the system, your system gets a little bit better. It's not how it works, especially when you have these young guys at the complex, at the DSL, ready to work their way up and push the envelope. For example, I'm going to go to Connor Joe. We traded Connor Joe for a hot, warm body. You all remember Nick Garcia? Do you remember Nick Garcia?
Nope.
Nobody remembers Nick Garcia. Nick Garcia, no offense to him, he was like a top 25, 35 prospects, something like that. Fringe, warm body from the Pirates. We have to move Connor Joe because we don't have any room for him on our roster. We need some space for somebody else. Connor Joe was beloved by Rockies and the Rockies fans, yet we moved him for a warm body. Nick Garcia is no longer in the system. I don't even know if he's in baseball anymore. Did that ruin the vibes? Because his good vibe shirt was electric and had good clubhouse stuff, and the Rockies tried something different with it. It didn't necessarily work out. I'll give one more and then I'll let you kind of respond however you want. But like, we traded Sam Hilliard for Dustin Spain. Remember Dustin Spain? Nope. But we had to move Hilliard because he wasn't working out with the Rockies, and we had to move him for something, anything. It's a win. Didn't work out. What was the point? He came back 2 years later because that's what the Rockies do. That's a whole different conversation. Maybe it's part of this conversation later. But like this idea that the Rockies are missing out on the value of their players at the peak value, I think is asinine. I don't think there was value in Cal Quantrill last year. I don't think there was value in Brendan Rodgers last year. I don't think there was value in Brendan Rodgers because other teams aren't dumb. I think that's how I'm going to pass it on to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll go on the opposite side because I do think the Rockies have an optics problem, just in the fact that the way they move to not add talent or not really address the losing that has built up a little bit over time is frustrating from a fan perspective, and that's what I always am first with this team. I mean, we were talking about it 2018, the last time our rotation was healthy and we felt good about it going into the year. Like that's already about to be 7 years ago, which is wild. And I mean, I know the Broncos finally broke their playoff drought. That was super nice, and I never want to have to go through a drought like that again. But now it feels like, when put in perspective, the Rockies one is approaching that, and historically, the two franchises differ greatly. But
Oh, yeah.
I just think it feels like every time the Rockies do make a trade, it's with the Braves or the Reds a lot,
Yep.
or the Blue Jays, obviously, with Tulo just comes to mind. The pitcher that we got in 2018 was also with the Blue Jays. I don't know. It feels like we don't talk to that many front offices. And to your point about B-Rod, I think, man, you hear these rumors, and hindsight's always 2020, but you hear these rumors that the Marlins might have dealt Edward Cabrera for B-Rod, and like I think that's where the mentality comes from, where, gosh, like, sure would have loved to have that one.
Right.
But yeah, I think, they weren't going to get much for Diaz, and the more recent examples certainly better the side that the Rockies. I'm not, it betters the side. Not that the Rockies' optics are good, because I don't think there's really an argument for them to be good. They're just not bad, which I guess could be taken as a good perspective. But
they're not bad, which is good.
yeah,
I agree with that. Maybe I need to change my wording a little bit. I think there is an optics problem, but maybe there shouldn't be as much of an optics problem. Is maybe what I'm getting
that's
at.
probably the best argument.
Yeah, and it's a lot to do with B-Rod. It's a lot what you just said. Hindsight's 2020, right? Like we could have traded B-Rod, who didn't really work out, for JT Realmuto and Edwin Cabrera. And hindsight 2020 says absolutely yes, love that. But like this was what our conversation was about, Sean, in the group chat was, is there an optics problem? Like, because when we didn't sign B-Rod in arbitration, we DFA'd or whatever, however the term is, didn't sign him, bring him back for arbitration, him and Cal. There was some rumblings about, why are we doing that? Who are we going to bring in? Like, what's the point? Like, we're giving up our top prospect in B-Rod for nothing. We couldn't bring him back for whatever. And the argument was, well, we should have traded him 2 or 3 years ago when his value was the highest. Granted, 2 or 3 years ago, all Rockies and front office had all of the belief that Brendan Rodgers was going to be a viable everyday major league starter. Injuries suck, right? So like, there's always this hindsight, but right now in this moment, I think it is a completely 100% okay that the Rockies did not bring back B-Rod and sign the exact same player with a little bit more pop, same value of player, a little bit more pop, less defense, and Tyro Estrada for $2 million cheaper.
Yeah,
and to this point, B-Rod still not signed by anybody, which I think is more about where the market is in baseball right now rather than B-Rod's abilities. But like, I don't know if the Rockies should have necessarily got dogged for not signing B-Rod and Cal.
Yeah, I think the point becomes more valid when you look at, Brendan Rodgers was a number 3 overall pick. Like, it's understandable why the Rockies wanted to hold on to him in his early years of struggling, and he debuted in 2019. 2019, gosh, we entered that year with the expectations of winning the division.
Yeah.
And number 3 overall pick makes his debut. You can hold on to a player through early struggles because, when you draft a guy that high, you expect him to pan out. And in baseball, the hit rate on first rounders is not great. It's the lowest of all the major sports.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And so it's a bit different. But it's just, looking at him being unsigned now makes it easier to swallow that, like, I guess, he wasn't with the Rockies during a time of great success. Like, whatever, we tried it with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I understand. And there's another comment, Diaz right after the All-Star game MVP, like, B-Rod had some peaks, which you have to balance. Is this the guy we're going to get for our franchise from now on? Or is this just a flash in the pan? And like you said earlier, other front offices know when that's the case, maybe more than the Rockies. But I think this example right here, Diaz after the All-Star game MVP, man, I thought he was gone within a day. But that's another thing where recency bias and like, does an All-Star game MVP really raise your value? I think it raises the amount of people that might call or pick up the phone if you call. But I don't know. It's hard to say anything for certain.
Right. And that's why the banter, the discourse is fun. And that's why I enjoyed our conversation in the Slack, even though I might have been on my little island on the side. But like, it's to like the Diaz thing, right? How did Diaz do after the All-Star game? He was terrible, right?
I don't really remember, so couldn't have
It
been.
was bad. It wasn't good. And so like my thought process, my theory is that front offices aren't dumb. Like they know what the flash of the pan is. They know that, all right, Diaz is hot right now, but there's got to be some outlying numbers that prove that Diaz isn't going to continue to do this. Same thing with Cal last year. He was hot in April and May. Like, oh, we just won this. We won this Cody Huff trade for Cal Contrail. We just found the resurgence of Cal. June, July, August hit. It was terrible. You got to believe that other front offices were able to see that in Cal's outlying numbers. There's got to be a reason they didn't come knocking. There's got to be a reason that like that April and May isn't who Cal is for this year going forward. And I don't know, it just feels like, oh, we should have traded Cal because we're in 100 last season. What is the value for fifth long relief from anybody looking for a playoff spot, right? I think the optics of not trading somebody shouldn't be as negative as it is. And again, hindsight's 120/20, right? And you look at the traditional numbers, so to speak. Oh, we should have traded him. There was something there. Then I think he would have been moved because the Rockies do move people. Your boy, who went to the Brewers for Luis Peralta. you were
Nick Mears. Yeah,
Nick Mears. Like you were confused by that trade. Like we just moved our best arm for a prospect that nobody knows about. Like the Rockies they made that move. They moved Jalen Beeks. They moved, keep going, right? Like they've moved players with certain teams and they got something back. That's because teams are calling. Hey, what is Mears' thing about? What can we do about this?
Yeah. Well, and Mears, he ended up getting big outs in the postseason for the Brewers. I will say the trades that Bill Schmidt have done have they've restored a lot of hope in me for trades because, I mean, Luis Peralta is a freaking animal. I can't wait to just watch him on the mound.
Right.
Let alone, I mean, Saez's boy Blaylock, like he came in a trade as well. And to Taylor's point, like that's probably the best, most fair perspective because the Nolan Arenado trade, like Christian says, like that really sunk the Rockies ship in terms of national perspective and kind of getting back. And then the Bryant contract, his infield hits adds too, kind of getting back to like how many teams can actually call about Rockies and how much do teams know about Rockies hitters like B-Rod and Diaz compared to the Rockies? Because playing at Coors Field makes it so tough to evaluate home and road splits. I mean, Tovar somehow hits better on the road than he does at home with his free swinging style. And then you've got guys that really like Doyle. Doyle is a Coors Field very much improved hitter this past season compared to a year ago. Where the splits were, he didn't perform great home or away. But this year, the home splits really skyrocketed and it brought up his overall performance while improving the road hitting as well. I just think it's another wrinkle that no other team really has to deal with, that the Rockies do have to deal with. And that just comes with the altitude. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that.
Right. And I guess maybe piggybacking off that point, like how do you sell a player like this is who he is based on altitude? Like, I don't know. Like we all were in love with Cal's fastball and cutter or whatever, like his pitch mix that was working at altitude. And does that carry over to Boston or anywhere that's sea level, like Tampa or anything like that? Like there's these metrics that just you have to take with a grain of salt when you're an outside team. And you have to, all right, he's a home split. We hear this all the time. Like, what are we doing? And I just think other teams are recognizing that, and there's just not a lot there. Like Nick Mears is a top 20 reliever in baseball, 100%. The Brewers called on Nick Mears. The Rockies moved Nick Mears because there was value there. So like I don't know. There's just that. We'll go non-tendering Patrick Lyons. Thank you for hanging out. Patrick Lyons of Rockies Insider. Consider this. Dahl went from All-Star to DFA at a time when they were contending. Rogers' value peaked when they weren't contending. One is more bad luck, one is just more bad management. That might be the best argument that I would maybe jump on board with. Yes, we missed out on Brendan Rodgers' peak value. That was 4 years ago. And I think my argument is the right now piece. The optics right now, the Rockies fumbled the bag because of, I think is not necessarily fair. Hindsight 2020, the Rockies, you can go down the list. They fumbled the bag on Brendan Rodgers. They fumbled the bag on Trevor Story. You can make an argument on the other side. John Gray. Go down the list. Should Rymack have been moved? Maybe. But is anybody calling on Rymack? No. I don't think anybody's calling on Rymack. No offense to him. I love Rymack to death. But like, just I think if the team like Nick Mears, if the team sees value in somebody, they are calling. I just think that that's been proven. Randall Grichuk and Mike Moustakas, they had value for the Angels, and we got Victor Vodnik, CVS, and Tanner Gordon in it, or Jake Madden, and we got value from that helps this because the Angels saw value in some contracts that weren't very good, like that were ending. So I think teams do call, and I don't know, and maybe it's not as much as we want it to be as Rockies fans, but I think teams are there and recognize value when it's worth recognizing value from.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that the teams that get these super prospect hauls are the teams that are trading away superstars, and the Rockies since Arenado haven't had that. And if you look at where the Rockies and Cardinals are right now from an organizational standpoint, they're both entering rebuilds. Colorado had 2 top 100 prospects. We can agree to disagree on their rankings. St. Louis had 3, I believe. I was talking actually about that today with one of my friends that's a Cardinals fan. Like, Arenado's going to be a Dodger. It's going to happen eventually. It's just looking back at charades always adds a little bit of an interesting element because, look, half the prospects that the Rockies got back in the Arenado trade, I couldn't even name. And the other, I mean, Montero is overseas, and Gomber is the only guy left who, shout out to him, he survived all the trade talks of this past season, and he's going to be back playing again with the Rockies this upcoming year as probably their 3rd or 4th starter off the left side.
Right.
It's just incredibly hard to expect these great returns on prospects when the best you can say for a player is, wait, but they won NL Player of the Month once. Like, be realistic sometimes.
Yeah, I agreed. And is trading all of your prospects really getting you wins? The Padres are going through it right now. The Padres are going to be a dumpster fire for a few years now because of trading all these assets and putting all these big contracts that haven't really amounted to it. Yes, they're relevant, they're electric, but I don't think they have a division title in the last 5 years. They have no World Series. So like, is it worth it getting rid of all these prospects to bring in who's the third baseman over there? Bogarts. To bring in Bogarts? Is that really played out? I don't know. Like, should they have traded Tatis when he had the peak value? I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I want to go to the chat because Wild the Innocent brings up 2 fantastic examples of things that are so frustrating for me and the rest of Rockies fans. Should have gotten something for Carlos Estevez before he left. The Carlos Estevez I remember in Rockies pinstripes would walk a batter per inning and save 5 out of every 8 games. Like, it was not like the Rockies could have gotten a great return, and now he goes off and becomes an all-star. Jeff Hoffman was an all-star, I believe, and he was pitching in the playoffs. That's what blows my mind, because with the Rockies, and I know there's bad blood between him and the organization, just the way that he's talked about them. Like, Jeff, we gave you all the chances we could here. Like, if the Rockies traded for him. The Rockies traded Tulowitzki for Jeff Hoffman. We wanted him to work out more than the Rockies wanted him to work out more than anyone. And so, let alone perform well enough to be traded, we wanted him to perform well enough to become a top of the rotation guy. Like, there's just certain things that don't work out. And whether it's altitude or not, like that part really hurts the Rockies' optics unfairly. And so now I'm really finding myself in the middle ground between our arguments.
And that's why I love the conversations, why I like having it. But and like Hoffman, and that might be a whole nother conversation. Like, how did the Rockies fumble the bag on Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez and all these guys that are going and finding success somewhere else? What did the Rockies do wrong with those people? Is it the Rockies? Is it altitude? Is it a combination of both? Like, what is it that we're missing? And I really think this lab that they set up and what they're working on in the minors with some of these guys to get them ready for altitude, I think we'll start showing dividends coming soon. I think there is something to be there. And right, exactly. And so like, this is always our cop out, right? Like, yeah, but altitude sucks. So how are we supposed to be good? That's what the Rockies need to figure out. And that's what I think the Rockies are finally moving towards with what they're doing in the minors. And somebody that watches and follows it, and like the diversity in the arms is good. Like, it's, you got Chase Dollander throwing 98 at your head, and then you got Sean Sullivan coming at you from 54 feet away. Like, there's a reason, there's some kind of science happening right now with it. And I think it comes back to, like, I just get tired of this, and this isn't any offense to Patrick Lyons, or this is just what I get exhausted with, is when it comes to B-Rod, non-tearing him in November makes sense. Right. No trade market for him in July. Sure. But still, fans are frustrated that Colorado got nothing for another asset. Yes, we fumbled that bag in 2021, 2022. I agree with that optics, but like, with the decisions that are being made and where it is right now, I think it's fine. I think we're okay with what happened. We held on to it too long, and that's where the Rockies need to figure out a little bit more, which I feel like the Rockies are doing. But we value these players a little bit too much, where we think they have this high ceiling of value as fans, that why aren't the Yankees really pushing to get Ryan McMahon in pinstripes? Like, he's too streaky. Like, no, like, again, I don't like, I feel like I'm dogging on Rymac, but like, it just doesn't feel like that value is there with like what we think the Rockies should be doing. And that's where I kind of get frustrated, and that's where I'm feeling, that's where I am on this side of the bag optics. I don't know if are necessarily warranted.
Well, and I also think, like as is true in life, trust and rapport is something that takes a long time to build up, and it can be torn apart just like that. And so
Yep.
the Rockies did mess stuff up in the past, and not the too distant past, if you consider the Arenado trade. And, you know, do you want to let Trevor Story walk to bring in Chris Bryant? Like, that stuff understandably made fans upset. It made me upset. It made you upset. It made everyone upset.
Yep.
Like, they're going to have to continue to make these quiet, better moves to improve the team, and then ultimately, hopefully, make a splash that adds the level of talent that has us in at least the National League Championship Series. I mean, we got to the Division Series in 2018. Like, it's possible, people. I think the two comments back to back, Isaac and Patrick Lyons, those can all be pointed back to pitching at altitude. Isaac, and then Lyons, I'm countering by saying lack of development at the major league level. I think it's perfect, because, like, as a fan that's covered the team, like, talked to them, cried about them when I was younger, like, I like leaning on the pitching at altitude as a hutch, but you can't continue to use that, because, like, at the end of the day, this franchise is going to be 40 years old relatively soon, and they're not going to never not have to deal with altitude. And so you do have to ask the questions about developing the major league talent, because, you know, there's a reason we talked about, you want good prospect hauls, you got to have superstars. Well, the way you make superstars is by developing them not only through the system, but then at the big league level. So there's a lot of moving parts with this. It's the Bridich era is behind us, and it's simply too early in the Bill Schmidt era to make the claims that nothing's working. Because I do think the farm system, you know, we had 6 top 100 prospects last year. Supposedly it's only 2 this year. I think overall the depth of talent is better. but you have to have those guys make an impact at the big league level. Like for the Rockies to reach the postseason, Charlie Condon's got to be a dog. He just does. Or else I don't know when we'll next see the Rockies in the playoffs. But it all comes down to exactly what kind of the chat debate, and shout out to chat, super active tonight. This is awesome.
Loving it. So much more fun when it's going off. So thank you for hanging out.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and I think maybe we end it here. We'll see. Rockies need to learn from their mistakes. They aren't, unfortunately, that leads to frustration. And the argument with that is we are loaded with outfield talent that are knocking on the major league door. Are we missing that window of trading those for a major league asset? Like here's Zach Veen, Greg Jones, and Braxton Fulford for a starting first baseman. I don't know anybody out there. I don't know. Vlad. Like, what would it take to bring in Vlad? Like, we have some of those prospects that have value because nobody knows what they are right now. Why aren't we moving them? And I will listen to that argument. I think I agree to that argument. But like on the major league level, I just think there's some grace that I think the Rockies deserve, where just the players just aren't as good as we think they are. I mean, look at our record, and that other teams know more about them than they think they should, right? So I don't like Isaac loves the farm. Rockies have a great approach right now. Guys who throw weird and velocities are probably the two best options. Hergert, Lawrence, Halverson, Von Nick, Caserta. It's a positive direction. I'm excited about the Hergert signing. I'm curious how his funkiness brings it into it.
Yes.
And then this, right? Like, as fans, do we really want them to be trading Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tofar to get more assets to be there for the window in 2027, whatever it might be? Or should Doyle and Tovar continue to be a Rocky and prove themselves to be part of that winning window with what we wanted B-Rod to be part of when we had that squad? Like, hindsight is always 2020, and you can run an organization. We can all run an organization 13 different ways and still make the playoffs 10 out of those seasons if we really wanted to. And I don't know, I think that's what's fun about baseball. There's a whole bunch of different ways to go about it. And it's just, I don't know, it's fun for the discourse, again, fun in the chat, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm 21 years old, and so this is kind of, I followed this team my whole life, and you always have to revisit history to understand how to improve upon it. And so, I mean, I remember the Rockies basically when I was 10 years old, so starting 2013, 2014, they were bad until through 2016. And then all of a sudden you look at that 2017 lineup and you're like, wow, like Carlos Gonzalez, Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, Mark Reynolds hit 30 bombs in there too. Like, there were some dogs. They bring in Parra, who made a great impact on that team, especially in 2018. Life of the team. Then he won a World Series with the Nationals. We have to get to that point first.
Right.
And I think a lot of people you need those kind of guys with that talent. And so right now you can look at Doyle and Tovar and say, okay, maybe they can get there. But the fans just also have to understand what it takes to build a postseason quality lineup. Like, it is hard to reach the major league postseason, and it might take a while. And I'd rather have it be built than, a lucky season that completely tricks our fans, our ownership into, thinking something's there that it's not. So I don't know. The whole thing's a process. And so you can always look at failed trades or trades that didn't happen that you can view as failures. Ultimately, you've got to take chances and hope to not make mistakes.
Yep. But
gosh, I mean, for me, I'm as optimistic as they come. You just look at those lineups of the postseason years in 17 and 18 and think dang, they had a lot of talent, known talent. And so Michael Tolley and Nolan Jones got to step up. And then maybe you have your core four there. And then you just got to have a guy that can extend the inning past the 5-hole hitter and have productive guys in the 6 through 9 spots. I'm not trying to make it sound like the Rockies are farther away than they are. It's just, you really realize how much it takes.
Yeah, and there's so many outside factors that go into everything, and we see it with players all the time. They're really good, they're really bad, they're really good, they're really bad, and it's just there. Yeah, how many kids will know I have before the Rockies make the
Oh,
postseason
gosh.
again? It might be a hot minute. To be fair, the next window might be whenever the expansion happens and we get out of the Dodgers division.
Hey,
Also fair.
that's true.
And I think Chris Beck is a little biased here, but I think he's has a good point. Outfield play in spring training is going to be fun to watch.
Heck yeah.
And he follows that up with, we are going to win to the World Series in 2027. And
Sure.
Jordan Beck is going to be part of that team doing work out right, left, center. Who knows? He's going to be
Not
on
center.
that team. Center field, Jordan Beck. Doyle's going to be an old man by that age and have to move to left, and Jordan Beck will hold it down for us.
Hope not.
But I'm really excited, Chris Beck. I know. Thank you for hanging on the chat, joining us again. Our off season was great. Hopefully yours was good. You got to hang out with your kid a little bit, doing fun things, getting ready for the season there. Yeah, and it really comes down to what Wild Innocence says: win the home games. Go and win the home games. Go do your thing. Got to start where you can there. And we'll get out of here with this. That lasted way longer than I expected it to, but I love the conversation. That's why I want to do this podcast. Like, it's fun to talk and have different opinions and not agree at the end of it, and that's okay.
We barely used the rundown. The chat provided all of the arguments.
It's so great when the chat's popping. The Picada ranking projection said that the Rockies will lose 106.5 games, I think is what it was. We are optimistic. And I know we get that thing, right? That persona pushed on us, but it's not that bad.
There's no way,
right?
That this team loses 106.5 game, 107 games. Like, nah, if they lose 106, you still cash the under. Like,
right?
There's no way. Gamble responsibly.
Yes, definitely gamble responsibly. But it's 106 seems super high. I don't care. Like, it just feels like this isn't 100 loss team. Granted, we might be pushing 90. And I'm not saying, when I use the word competitive, I put it on the Twitter, like, if this happens with Nojo and Tolia, we could be competitive. That doesn't mean that we're pushing a playoff spot. That doesn't mean we're knocking on the wild card door. We're not pushing 500. We are competing in games. We're not going to get blown out. We might win a series when we shouldn't have. Those type of things. Like, we are going to compete with teams.
Yeah, and pushing 90 losses is still a 10-game improvement from a year ago. So
you really can only get better. Like, I think things really have to go bad with the starting rotation. Like, 3 of those guys have to be hurt again for it to be terrible.
Luis Peralta propaganda in the chat. I love it.
Luis Peralta will carry us to 88 losses. that is awesome. All right. Anything for the good of the cause, Noah?
I don't think so. That was really fun.
That was fun. I appreciate that. We need to do more off banter sessions like this. Just don't blow as many leads in the night like next year, and we don't lose 100. And I think we have that in this arm board. I think there's going to be some pieces being put together, which is just going to make it fun to watch. Thanks for hanging out with the chat. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to us on the podcast, put on the automatic downloads, put on the review, and when you're done with this, send it to your mama, because we are her favorite podcast. She just doesn't know it yet. As always, go Rocks. Woo!